the top of the hour. Welcome everyone to DiMe's lightning speed crowdsourcing for April 2020. This is a very exciting one as we are featuring research from the next generation of healthcare leaders with some really fantastic DiMe student members today. So let's get started as we got a tight ship today. So let's do some housekeeping. So today's session is being recorded, so please keep that in mind, and the recording and the slides will be made available after today's session. So in true lightning speed format, each presenter will have a total of 8 minutes of airtime today. So that's 3 minutes to present and then 5 minutes for the live Q&A, and that's where the fun happens. So everyone is encouraged to participate in the Q&A. So if you have a question for one of our presenters, please raise your hand in the participant window. And when the time comes, I will call on you to ask your question live to our presenters. All right, and so after the session, do please jump on the Lightning Speed Crowdsourcing Slack channel, as that is where the conversation continues after today's live session. So if you want to have more in-depth conversations or questions, that's a great place to do it. All right, now let's go ahead and get started then with the fun stuff that you came in for. So we have 3 fantastic presenters, and we'll start off with Vale Topegin. He's an undergrad at Georgia Tech. Then next we have Jooyoung Kim, a PharmD student at Northeastern. And then lastly, we have Iredia Olaye. She's a PhD candidate at a university we can't quite name because in order for her school requires getting approval to use their name in external presentations. And as her university has been closed for a while due to the pandemic, here we are. But we're very lucky to have Iradia's fantastic presentation. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Vale, are you on the line?
Hi everyone, I'm Vale.
Hey Vale, all right, and you've got the floor.
Okay, 3 minutes?
That's right.
Awesome. So again, hi everyone, I'm Vale. I'm an undergraduate student at Georgia Tech studying computer science, and outside of my classes, I do research into security of distributed machine learning and what we call federated learning. So next slide, please. So before we get into distributed machine learning, what is machine learning? And so at a high level, really machine learning is the process of generating insights from data, right? And so some of these use cases for machine learning include things like predictive analytics, computer vision, natural language processing, and these are all really applicable in a wide variety of fields. But in traditional machine learning, one of the key elements is really collecting data, and I've highlighted that here in this slide by the red box around the fetch step. And so this part of the process where we're collecting the data and storing it in some database system, usually in the cloud, is very effective at generating good machine learning systems, but it creates concerns with data security and privacy. And so we've now moved all of this data into one place, right? Next slide, please. Next slide. Thank you. So when we collect, as I said, when we collect all this data and store it into one centralized location, we increase the risk of data breaches, as well as issues with privacy and other security concerns, right? Next slide, please. So what can we do to kind of work with this challenge and kind of improve it, right? So it's tough, but basically federated learning can help us reduce the impact that we have with security challenges. And in this scenario, we're aggregating models while we don't aggregate the raw data. And so that preserves the ability to generate insights without having to actually access the consumer and user data directly. And so it reduces security risks and privacy challenges. So next slide. So I'm working on building scalable federated learning, and my team and I are completing an MVP through the Mozilla Open Lab Incubator. I've included some of the key features of what we're doing here. And so next slide, please. So some of the challenges that we have, we love to be able to get in touch with anyone who's a machine learning expert in digital medicine or people who have expertise in medical data security and privacy. And so This is a very tough challenge that we're trying to address, and I am excited to get in touch with anybody who would be interested in talking with us and maybe sharing some of their expertise. That'd be awesome. Next slide. And so I have a couple of questions to kind of get the Q&A started, but I wanted to say thank you both to DiMe and everybody here for giving me the opportunity to present.
All right, Vale. Fantastic presentation. Thanks for being so willing to do that so quickly. There's a lot of really great things that you talk about, and primarily I'm interested in how federated learning makes using participant health data much more safely. Can you give a little bit more about why federated data is federated learning the most exciting thing that you have decided to use for your startup?
Yeah, so basically what the key advantage here is that we can conduct machine learning without having to store all user and consumer data in a centralized location in the cloud. And what this does is it helps prevent challenges with security and privacy while still giving you the ability to actually use that data to conduct machine learning and generate insights. And so this really is kind of, I think, in many ways an ideal because it helps you, it still helps you get the value out of everything that all of these digitally connected technologies without a lot of the challenges associated with their, with the centrally aggregating the data.
Okay, great. Okay, now if you're on the line, everyone has been unmuted. So this is kind of the exciting Wild West aspect of lightning speed crowdsourcing. So if you do have any questions for Vale, let me do a quick check. Any quick questions for Vale? Let's give just a couple more seconds for people to unmute.
Hi, Will, this is Abhi. Thanks for the presentation. I think as quick as it is, would love to know a little more detail, and I'll probably follow up on the Slack channel. As you talk about privacy, it's just important to think in how it is applicable in different data modalities of digital health and where it will work and where it's probably not needed, but that's something devil is in the details discussion. Thanks again.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Bill, we got a question here from Randy Horton. He's asking, who do you see as your biggest competition right now?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So there are a lot of different startups in the space here, and there are also some big players who have worked on some of the technologies here. So Google has done a lot of work with federated learning. Microsoft has also done some, and so has IBM. But all of these different organizations really have not built a full solution that really addresses some of the general concerns with building scalable technologies. And so a lot of these are kind of one-offs. And so that's what we're trying to bridge that gap there.
All right, I'm always so impressed by people's ability to answer so quickly, especially here. All right, Vale, thanks so much. That's your presentation time. If you have any more questions for Vale, be sure to jump on the Lightning Speed Crowdsourcing Slack channel, where he will be monitoring for your questions. All right. Thanks, Vale. All right, now we'll pass the torch on to Danny. Danny, are you ready to go?
I am ready to go and live here from Seoul, Korea.
Floor is yours. Go ahead.
All right, beautiful. So hello, everyone, and thank you again for the community for inviting me over to unload one of the questions that's been on my head for the last couple of months, which is this: how do we best equip the next generation of healthcare workers for digital medicine? Next slide, please. So as introduced, my name is Jooyoung Kim. I'm second generation pharmacist in training, designer at heart, and an operator in action. And it didn't take me long to realize that the crowd that I love to hang around with and the topics that I love to discuss is not very usual for other students in my school. And I stumbled across digital health and digital medicine the first week of school, and subsequently worked with companies like PillPack, Pear, and did some on-ground work at hospitals and whatnot, which led me to my position today at Soundable, early stage startup that's working on audio biomarkers. And I quickly realized again, coming back into the classes from these live experiences outside in the world, that digital health and digital medicine, although that some students do express interest in it, is not heavily taught at school, which led me to kind of the next slide and the thoughts there. So there is an effort on the ground to educate the next generation healthcare providers, as you know, and we see many resources online that are along the guides or primer kind of type to kind of list down how can students go about learning digital medicine or digital health. But I don't think the key or solution here is to develop another coursework or a curriculum for students who vaguely started to garner interest. Instead, there needs to be what I kind of think that a bite-sized solution or a bite-sized a blurb or information that we can go about. And then next slide, please. And the best way to learn is through engaging examples that are easy to understand and garner interest. I thought about like how I started kind of thinking about, dipping toes and garnering interest in digital health and digital medicine. And it was through hearing stories about the founders who went on to solve a problem, found a solution that worked and, succeeded, that came from the same background as me. Next slide, please. So as of now, here are my ideas so far in terms of thinking about the framework, the primer, the examples that could be maybe aligned with a disease that we learn at school as of now, and connect this community together. Next slide, please. And here are some of the questions that I'd like to maybe start off the Q&A with, which is what would be the best form of sharing this content that it garner interest in students who vaguely heard about digital health and digital medicine and would like to learn more? What are the resources that I need to be mindful of for the experts in go-to-person in our communities? And what are some of the ways that these info could be distributed? And what are some of the startups that come to your mind as I talk about bite-sized information that could garner interest in digital health? And with that, I'll open it up to the Q&A and to the floor.
Great, thank you so much. That was a really, really interesting presentation, and I'm particularly interested in your focus on trying to train our next generation of clinical colleagues in the digital medicine space. I like your approach about maybe giving, instead of just teaching digital medicine, but to do more real-world examples is a great, teaching tool. Now, again, if you do have questions, you can ask them live. Let me see if anyone is willing to unmute themselves and ask a question to Danny just yet. While we're getting some participant questions. Yes.
Hey, this is Jen Goldsack and Vale, Danny, and Aradia. This is terrific. I'm grateful to be able to listen in today. The question that seems to resonate across both Danny's sort of presentation and also Vale so far is, who are the go-to experts? Who are the people in the community who can either mentor, whether that's through an education point of view or whether that's supporting a new startup initiative, as in Vale's case. And I wonder if I can ask our fellow DiMe experts on the line, that's something we think about a lot at DiMe. Who are those people? How can we find them? And what are the incentives for incredibly busy clinicians or technologists who are already working in the field to step in and help? And I wonder if I'm curious to learn, because I'd like to see how DiMe can support, but I think we need to hear from those experts themselves. And I wonder if anyone has any ideas.
Yeah, this is Eric J. Daza. Quick background on me, I'm a biostatistician by training, health data scientist currently. I talk to a group called Docs and Hackers frequently, and I go to their meetups. So that might be a place to start looking for some expertise, as well as making connections if you haven't reached out to them yet. So Docs and Hackers.
Love their community, I have to say. We're hoping that we can host them on campus sometime.
This is Randy Horton in Chicago. I guess my suggestion would be, because I had some involvement with spreading AI curriculum to undergraduate medical students in the last couple of years, is that the good news is that in healthcare, there's already a long tradition of see one, do one, teach one, apprenticeship learning, pre-professional societies. So this is for distribution channels, but it may also just help you find people, as well as there's a lot of different groups spread out across sort of graduate programs and preclinical programs and research programs And so if you focus rather on, I said, building a mashup, essentially a list of people who are interested but already have their own organizations as distribution channels for you. So if you can offer content up to them or in turn ask them, who are you connecting with? That may be a way to build a network, reaching out to those kinds of groups. I think like med schools have SIG groups for different specialties people are thinking about going into.
Thanks, Randy. That was really helpful, and thanks, Eric, too. I think those are great pointers for Danny. You have about 45 seconds left. Danny, maybe you can help give us some background of maybe some groups too that you've reached out to, or maybe some immediate thoughts about the kinds of immediate curriculum you'd like to bring to your program.
Yeah, absolutely. The reason why I, wanted to kind of think about the real life experiences was the questions that I started asking in class. So we were learning about diabetes, and the teacher would be presenting about diabetics, preventive TPP, so to speak. And a lot of the times, what seemed to resonate a lot with my peers and colleagues seemed to be the real life examples. So obviously, the first communities that I went to was communities like where Docs and Hackers, where we too have a mix of clinicians and also programmers in one place, and also a lot of hackathon, I think, communities that seem to kind of pre-select the people who are really interested about these things. So MIT Hacking Medicine is another been another community that I reached out to. But looking forward to continuing the conversation on the Slack channel for sure.
Great, fantastic. Thanks so much. Okay. All right, now our last presentation today is from Iredia. So she's got some really fantastic work here, and I'll turn over the floor to her.
Hi, everyone. My name is Iredia. I'm a late-stage PhD candidate. A bit about me: my educational and professional experiences range from medicine, digital health, health administration, biostatistics, and AI. So today I will be sharing briefly about my doctoral research on digital medicine, patient attrition, and broadly how it connects to my general research interests on the intersection of digital medicine and AI. Next slide. We have a major problem in our field of digital medicine. The clinical trials that we use to validate our digital medicine solutions have extremely high patient attrition rates, with average attrition rates in digital medicine clinical trials being around 70%. The tools and the strategies that we use to make digital health tools engaging and to prevent patients from dropping out of these trials are ineffective. This impacts the generalizability and the external validity of trial findings, among other issues. A major implication of the high attrition rate is that sometimes there could be underrepresentation in various populations. Next slide. Oh, 1 second, I see something in the chat. I thought someone was messaging me. Okay. Yes. So the clinical trials that we use to validate our digital medicine solutions have extremely high attrition rates, as I mentioned previously, around the 70%. And so the implication of that is that many populations are underrepresented in our data. Patient populations should represent the data that we get from digital health clinical trials. Marginalized groups such as racial and ethnic minorities and hearing and visually and physically challenged persons are frequently underrepresented in clinical trials. This not only has important repercussions regarding the safety and the efficacy of our tools, but also reduces the opportunities for subgroup analysis and contributes to algorithmic bias in health systems. Just to summarize, data is first generalized during a digital medicine clinical trial. Algorithmic bias is introduced when AI models are trained on potentially biased data, and algorithms are contributing to the health inequities when they compound these bias and potentially can have an impact when they are utilized for healthcare decisions. Next slide. There is generally very limited literature that I found during my research, and almost all digital medicine trials are plagued by high attrition rates, and there's not extensive literature on this phenomena. The literature is very fragmented and doesn't really represent a clear picture of what patient attrition is in digital health trials. From the factors that you can see on the screen, are various ones that I've been able to discover during my literature search. But what still lacks are the importance of leveraging experts to supplement the knowledge that we're finding in the literature. Next slide. Okay. Which is why I'm excited to join all of you today. I would like to hear about your experiences with patient dropout, patient attrition, and either digital health clinical trials or with the disengagement of patients utilizing digital health tools. And what risk factors do you believe contribute to patients leaving studies and the high attrition rates in clinical trials?
All right, great. Thanks, Aradia. So now we are opening up to the live Q&A portion. Really fantastic work. Thank you so much for, again, shining light on the very important concept that a lot of clinical trials leave out, the most vulnerable groups. So this is a very important topic about attrition rates generally in clinical trials, especially as it relates to digital medicine. I'm wondering if Avi, did you have any questions for Aradia just yet?
I was just trying to hide. Thanks for
I
calling.
saw you unmuted. You can't ever hide from DiMe.
Aradia, thank you for presenting that. That's lovely, and mainly because it's so close to my heart in terms of what the work I do in assessing the importance of patient engagement and all the other things that are linked to it. One thing I'll suggest is, of course, bias alert. There's some work that our group has done, and I would encourage you to at least look at that. It's only scratching the surface, and the reason is essentially finding this data across trials at the individual user level is incredibly hard.
Right.
So first of all, I'm very happy to share all the data that we have collected with 100,000 people or so in the last few years. So I can happily provide that. But other, excuse me, other few things that you have listed, the impact of clinicians or caregivers, et cetera, those are, thank you. Those are really important things that we could not assess in our analyses, and figuring out how you could do that is an open question, but a very important one.
Great, thank you so much for that.
Yeah, quick shout out to Avi will be hosting our journal club next week, if you can believe it's May next week already, on a very similar topic to this. So if this is something that you're interested in, do stick around. We've got some more information on that.
Hey guys, this is Jen. Aradia, great presentation, thank you. So I'm going to make one comment per my previous, and I can see John's got his hands raised, so I'll keep this quick. One comment per my previous sort of remark, which is, you know, Avi, watching you sort of passionately jump on that and offer resources to Aradia kind of reminds me that, you know, when we're looking for mentors and things, looking for that passion match is probably really important and perhaps something we can think about here at DiMe. The second thing, and again, going back, Rachel, perhaps if you can nip back to the slide that you showed in response to Avi's comment, one of the things that a few of our sort of patient advocates have come to us with is this idea of needing patient input in the selection and development of measures and also in the deployment. And if I listen to our patient experts, they tell us that, you know, if things were developed more closely to them, they may be able to troubleshoot really early on some of these issues. Either the measure isn't important to them and so they're not motivated to continue to assess it, and or some of the, you know, and I want to pause there for a second because I think everyone immediately thinks about usability. And obviously you need to partner with patients to get usability data. But what I've heard from our patient experts is it's not just the usability of the tool. It's also, does this measure matter to me? Is this important? Am I motivated to continue sharing this information? So I think that might be something that's important. And I'm also curious to hear from you, Aradia, and also Abby and others on the line, if that resonates, because we are considering throwing some resources behind that here at DiMe. So I welcome your input.
Absolutely. I would definitely love to continue that during the Slack channel, but want to make sure that I believe John is raising his hand, and Abby, who are two experts, the floor.
Hi, it's John Novak. I'm head of patient engagement for a privately held company called Inspire, which is a healthcare social network of some 2 million patients and caregivers, and we help connect patients to large pharma companies for the most part, conducting clinical trials and trial design related market research. Great presentation and congratulations. I don't have a question so much as just an invitation, and I see your email here and happy to share with the group more widely. As you were talking, I was thinking on people who I am fortunate enough to know, innovators focused on this area, both from the patient expert side, and I'm glad Jennifer kind of alluded to that in her remarks just now. And additionally, within industry, some could be people who, most of them in the States, but not all, and all have some focus and desire, particularly with underserved populations and improving clinical trials. So happy to be a resource to you.
Oh, that would be amazing. Thank you so much.
All right.
Just quickly, sorry.
Yeah, we got quickly, Avi.
Just quickly add to what Jennifer was saying. It's super important to understand the social affordance of these assessments, and so thinking on a usability study is also critically important.
Absolutely.
All right, excellent. Thanks for that comment. I really appreciate how the conversation here at DiMe especially always goes back to the patient. So the last conversation that we had, I think, was really useful. Now we do have some questions still going on, but it looks like we're kind of out of time for here, which again, as a reminder to jump on that lightning speed crowdsourcing Slack channel. Here is the information here. We'll get that conversation going, and be sure to reach out to our fantastic presenters today directly and get those conversations going. Great stuff today. So while we wrap up today, I will continue the presentation and do a quick shout out for our upcoming webinar on Monday, May 4th, which is a fantastic 101 on digital therapeutics. We have fantastic presenters, including Megan Coder, who is the executive director of our good friends at the Digital Therapeutics Alliance, and also Jeff Abraham. Next week, we also have Avi coming back again for Virtual Journal Club, where he talks about looking at some of the results that he saw with his work at Sage Bionetworks. Really interesting stuff, and obviously a fantastic presenter. So be sure to try and check that out. And so if you really enjoy the lightning speed crowdsourcing format, really exciting stuff always, but our next one will be late May, where we look at a general theme of patient engagement, which is ever important with all of our clinical trials and our clinical trial work. All right, so we're wrapping up today. Thank you again to everyone on the line, to our fantastic presenters, Vale, Danny, and Aradia. Fantastic work, thank you so much. And be sure to keep the conversation going on Slack. And from there, we'll end a little bit early today. So thank you, everyone.